You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have a special guest here with me today. And we were already off to a fun start with all kinds of Zoom problems and noise in the background. So we are ready to dive in and talk about a much more fun topic than technical difficulties. So I'm going to turn it over so he can introduce himself and let you know where you can find him online.
Hi, I'm Tom Benjamin. I always say I'm Tom Benjamin. Call me Ben, but I'll respond to anything. Tom Benjamin. You can find me online at The Fool's Journey on YouTube and Tom Benjamin Tarot on Instagram and Blue Sky. And my website is tombenjamintarot.com.
And I will say that you offer, I mean, we're going to talk about your book, but you offer a ton of information and just like different things for people to learn on all of your platforms. I am very impressed by this.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've always been kind of a teacher at heart, so no matter what I do, I can't quite shake that.
No, I love it because sometimes, people have their one thing that they're good at. They're really great at the books or really great at writing blog posts or YouTube videos, and you seem to have done it all.
I'm just a loudmouth.
Fair enough. Are you exhausted? Because I feel like I was like scrolling through all of your YouTube videos. I was like, how do you do it?
Well, I've been doing that for a long time. Like, I think I posted my first video in 2012. So it's been a minute. And I think the reason why I've been able to do so much is I've never tried to keep myself to, to you have to have a schedule and release every Tuesday. And like, I've never paid attention to the algorithm rules and stuff. And so that's kept my audience relatively small, but it's also prevented me from burning out.
Oh, that's smart. I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I say this a lot, like you can burn out doing things you love as much as you can burn out doing things you hate. So you just gotta pay attention.
Well, it's actually fantastic advice that I should pay much more attention to.
I should listen to my own advice too.
Well, the reason that we are here today is to just specifically talk about your book. And I was going to say, but you also have a bunch of free ebooks on your website too.
I do.
That's another thing.
I do. I have. Yeah, those I put up from time to time. They're like not enough for a whole book or not enough for a video, but things that are on my mind. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it. We are specifically going to talk about your newest book. And that is The Modern Fortune Teller's Field Guide, which is a great title.
Thank you.
So let's tell, if listeners have not heard about this or already know that it was coming out, what is this about? What can they expect?
So I like to think of this as a how-to book for readers. It's not so much about how to read tarot or the three divination methods I use in the book are tarot, Lenormand, and bone casting. But those kind of matter less. The idea is sort of like here's how we embody being an engaged diviner, an engaged fortune teller today. And so we're going to talk about divination. We're going to talk about card meanings a little bit, but we're also going to talk about what it means to take up, the cards or whatever it is we're divining, the cultural context of what we do, kind of present and past. We're going to look at some topics that maybe seem kind of like not related to divination, but really are, like the human ego and being a teacher and also just kind of seeing the world like a fortune teller and then what it means to be a fortune teller, or I guess a better way to say it is how to figure out what it means for yourself.
And do you have like a specific meaning to the term fortune teller? Or you just use that as like encompassing tarot and bone casting and everything under one umbrella?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I chose that word or that phrase because it kind of sums up when I started reading, like that was a bad word, right? Like you didn't call yourself a fortune teller. And one of the first things we get into in the book is like why that attitude was a problem, because fortune telling has never been any different than any other form of divination or card reading or any other trade. It just is mired in this historical bias, right? Again, usually against women, against people of global majority, sometimes against queer people, right? Against societies that have been colonized. And the fortune tellers were like a survival job for a lot of communities that were barred from, quote unquote, more legitimate work, and then they were criminalized. And so we get to like the 80s and 90s where it's sort of like, oh, I'm a tarot reader, or I read this or I read that, but I'm not a fortune teller, because the implication was that a fortune teller was a con artist. But we kind of begin by dismantling or deconstructing why we think that way, and think about how, anyone who takes up the mantle of card reader or diviner or fortune teller, whatever we want to call ourselves, it's kind of less about what we call ourselves and more about recognizing that there's a history of people who have been marginalized, penalized, worse, for practicing divination, and that I think we have a responsibility to honor that and them, our kind of spiritual ancestors, and also just to kind of recognize that we're in a unique moment right now where people aren't sort of anti-divination as much as they used to be, but all signs point to maybe that's not going to stay that way. So how do we prepare ourselves for that too?
On such a fascinating look at that. I mean, I love history in general, but yes, when you think fortune tellers, you kind of get that image of, the traveling circus and
Yes.
like, the scams, and it's just a con artist, when really
Yep.
like the traveling circuses were like outcast people in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's just a fascinating looking through history to like how we've gotten here today. I love all of that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
How
owe a lot, I should say, in terms of the history, to Lane Smith, who wrote uh, 78 Acts of Liberation, and the authors of the Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling, because both of those books really cover and inspired a lot of this. And their work, too, sort of was influential, too. So I just want to shout them out.
how did you decide to write this book as opposed to, a book for like reading for yourself and learning how to,
Yeah.
bone cast or read tarot or anything?
So I have two self-published books that are, physical print books, and they both are kind of workshops. And I wanted to do something that was a little more book-like, right? That the reader could kind of sit back and just experience. Because in my other two books, like I write a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, now go do this thing. And I do a little bit of that here. But I wanted to just sort of write a book that like someone could sit back and read. Um, so that was part of it. There's a book that I love called Bird by Bird, and I reference it in this book, by Anne Lamott, who's a novelist, but she wrote this book about writing, and it's partly about writing, and it's partly about life and just being a person with anxiety and a perfectionist and all of those things. And the original impulse was to kind of do that, right? To sort of create a book about divination and life. And then as I usually don't necessarily have a fully formed goal when I start a book. I just kind of see where it wants to take me. And as I was writing this, I realized that it was about this kind of idea of the fortune teller as like witch, right? As someone on the margins and taking advantage of that. Because I'm a cisgendered white guy, but I'm also a queer person, and it's I've been pretty pushed to the margins for me, and the world is sort of for the most part designed to protect people like me, except for the queer part. So that I've been marginalized, right, in my life as a cisgender white guy, it makes me go, okay, all right, there's more to this. So the book kind of just became what it wanted to be, and I try to let my writing do that anyway. Like I sort of, the older I get, the more I'm like, there's something bigger that's working, and maybe I'm not in charge. Maybe I'm just kind of typing for that thing, which sounds pretentious, but it does feel that way sometimes.
Like the book, it took on a life of its own after you started.
Yeah, yeah, they always do. And that's what I love about writing, is that if you let go and you get your ego out of the way, you'll find the most incredible things that you didn't even know you thought. It's pretty amazing.
That's so much fun. I could see how that would happen, especially like in terms of like as you're like researching more about like the history and everything that would come
Yeah.
into that, like how many more stories you would find.
Right. And I hope people do that. Like I hope that inspires people to sort of say, "Well, I want to know more about this. What do we not know that's never been written down?" Right? And I feel like I say at the beginning of this book, I want it to be the beginning of a dialogue or the continuation of a dialogue. So I hope that people do that and even kind of invent their own history based on what we know, to give themselves a mythology to play with. I think there's value in that too.
Do you think anybody could pick up this book and start here if they don't have like already a history in tarot or if they've never read for somebody else?
I think if they're feeling like this is something I'm curious about, but right, like I've heard this or that weird thing or this dogma, and so I don't like, is this for me? I think if you're on a journey of figuring out whether divination or being a fortune teller or tarot is for you, what I hope it does in that case is it inspires you to that, like, find your path. I think if you're like, I want a book that teaches me how to read cards, this isn't that. Although there are chapters in the book that will say, well, here's how you create your own system for doing that, which I actually think is the most valuable way to learn anything anyway.
Oh, I love that. That's a fantastic. I agree that that's like such a great way to learn because some people are just their minds work better that way,
Yeah.
and then you can like
Yeah.
tailor it to your own learning style.
Absolutely. I think that's the key, right? You got to find a path that makes sense and that you connect with. And I think a lot of people don't continue on learning anything because they sort of start to feel like, well, I don't think that way. I'm never going to do it that way. This isn't for me. But that's these anyone's book is just their own experience, right? It's not the law. It's not the Bible. It's just a bunch of declarative sentences written from someone who had an experience. It's not the law.
That's how I feel about learning too after like so many years in school. I'm like, if you're just asking me to like memorize something, like a list of tarot card meanings, I'm never going to do it. Like if I
Right.
just have to like sit down with flashcards, like it's not going to happen anymore. I'm past that stage of learning like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, you got to get in the sandbox. You really do. You really have to just be willing to make a mess.
That's such a good metaphor for that. I
It's
love that.
true.
No,
It's what we do
you
when we're
absolutely
kids.
do.
We learn everything that way when we're kids, but as adults, our ego kicks in and they're like, no, don't look silly. But you have to. You have to make mistakes. You have to try and fail and mess up and, get glue all over everything because you're going to remember things more that way. And with fortune telling or divination, it's coming from you anyway. So it needs to come from you.
Absolutely. And I feel, especially with divination and in particular reading for, other people, is that you can't just memorize a list of what the cards mean because they
Mm.
interact with each other and they change,
Yeah.
meanings for different people. So especially if you're reading for somebody else, you might, get totally different information for a certain card that it wouldn't apply that way to your own life, but that's not, what you're doing in the situation. You're
Yeah.
doing it for someone else.
Yeah. 100%.
So you have to like deeply understand, how
Yes.
the cards work together and for bone casting and things. I'm sure I've read about bone casting, but I've never done it.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to I think making a bone casting kit or it doesn't need to be all bones and I talk about that in the book too. It's just sort of a term for you can use charms, you can use game pieces, but collecting a kit is actually a really good way to sort of learn how to use it and to cast because as you're saying, well, I want this little acorn. Why, but why? What is it telling me? And casting is kind of a uniquely individual form of divination because you as the diviner are making your own kit, right? So again, it's going to come entirely from you. And the best, most specific, they take forever, doing a casting reading, but the most specific readings I've ever done for people have been using that because it's accessing my own like worldview in a way, so I'm able to be more precise. It's very so even if you don't want to do bone casting or casting, it's still valuable to make a kit because you'll learn a lot about yourself as a reader as you do it.
I bet so many people listening to this right now already do that without realizing it. Like we all
Mm.
have that little magpie where we're like, this is shiny pretty. I want to take it
Yes.
home. Like we don't know why. We just
Yes.
grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so natural. I think we're naturally designed to do this kind of stuff.
I think so too. I always think that when I'm like out, just like walking the dog, I'm like, I want that stick.
Yeah.
Like, am I the dog here? I don't know.
Right.
I want to take the
Exactly.
stick home.
It's so true.
But I feel that, like, for me, crystals are a problem because they are really shiny. They
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
really
Oh
look
my
good.
God.
But
Anything with
really, anything in
sparkle.
nature, I'm like, I want to pick up a rock. I want to pick up a stick. I want to pick up this leaf. This leaf
Yep.
looks really cool. Like,
I know. And but that all of that stuff can be used for readings. And so now you have an excuse to do it. Now,
I swear this collection makes sense. And I mean, we really, like, we all did that as kids, right? Some
yeah.
people were bugs, some people were rocks. Like, y'all, we all had those collections going.
Absolutely. And when you think about most divination tools, like they started as games. Tarot, we are pretty sure started as a game. Lenormand definitely did. Dominoes, probably, dice, right? Playing cards, they all started as games because they have the ability to be randomized. And it makes total sense to me that games would be used this way because life feels like one sometimes.
It really does. Some days it feels more like Jumanji, though. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to do
So
this.
true.
So, how did you get started on your own journey that led you to, like, making this book? Did you start with these little collections as a kid? Did you start with like a tarot deck?
I so I grew up very Catholic. And
Same.
yeah.
Trauma.
Trauma, right, exactly. And white Catholic, right? Like white Catholic is boring compared to like the other Catholics out there, because there's all magic. But I think I was always a little witch boy. I mean, I was a I was like the Wicked Witch of the West for Halloween more than once when I was, a little gay boy going to Catholic school when we got to dress up. Um, and I was always kind of interested in like spooky stuff, um, and ghost stories and that sort of thing. But I was terrified of tarot, terrified of divination. And my mom actually told me when I was a kid that her friend's grandmother predicted my grandfather's death. And that really traumatized my mom. And so that was in my mind. When I became a teenager and I was struggling with Catholicism and being a queer kid, I became really rebellious, and tarot is sort of one of those things. And so was witch stuff, but Wicca was kind of the dominant thing back then, and it just kind of felt to me at that age like Catholicism without the Pope. You know what I mean? Like it was, to me, it felt very dogmatic, and I didn't want that when I was 18 or 19. So I kind of stayed away from that. But the tarot stuck, and it was like, wait, you don't have to be passive. You don't have to wonder what's going to happen. You don't have to sit back. You can actually know, you can find answers, you can become an activated force in your own life. And so tarot took me, like it was like, you're mine. And I was like, okay, daddy, you know what I mean? And I just went for the ride. And I even gave it up for a while, because I just felt like I don't know, I just wasn't connecting anymore. And then 2 maybe years later just came running back at me and said, "No, actually, you're mine for the rest of your life." So, I once again, I just said, "Okay," and now here we are, and it's become. I love, like, I can read Lenormand, I can read Sibylla, I can do Bone Cat. I just love tarot. There's something about tarot that just it's like it's written on my heart somehow, which again sounds so weird, but somehow that is, if I had to choose just one, it would be that. But I also feel like everybody has that one thing, and it doesn't have to be tarot. So I also want to make it like, just because I like it and maybe people like the book or like my videos, like, oh, then I have to like tarot the most. No, my whole thing is like, find the thing that you like the most because you're going to read it the best.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Dare I ask how many tarot decks you have?
I don't know. I did count at one point during lockdown, and it was around 300.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
it's nuts, but I have rehomed some since, and then new ones are always coming in. So, it's an evolving thing. But I'm that way with books too. So I don't really get too up on myself for that. And when people come over and they're like, I'm always like bringing out a box of decks, and I'm like, hey, take these. You know what I mean? So I'm also a sharer, but I have a lot. I really do. It's my office is chaos.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic, though. I love it. That's how I've been feeling lately because I've always been like much more of a minimalist, like in general, just
Yeah,
very minimal in all of my belongings and possessions. And it's because I moved every year, like for so many years.
sure.
We all do that,
Yeah.
in college. And we finally bought a house in, I don't know, 2016. And it's only in like the last couple of years that I've been like, I can like collect things. Like I have space for books and I don't have to think about how much they weigh for the next time I move. Like we're just gonna stay here. So I'm like, now I feel like even more that like my collections are growing and I'm
Yeah,
like,
oh yeah,
oh, this is a problem. But
yeah.
it's a good problem.
It's a good problem. It's like a museum.
Yes, it is. Do you think you're at the point of like a library yet? You have to have like, I forgot what it like a couple thousand of
Ooh.
books to be a library.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not that. And I
Not quite
spend,
yet.
not quite. And I spend less on them than I used to just because everything's so expensive now.
It
But I
really is.
do sort of not so secretly dream of like a divination museum. I don't like, I'll never do that because I'm not like a business person, but I would love to sort of be like the elderly, proprietor of this sort of weird divination museum.
I want that for you so badly, so I can come visit it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you now? Because I know that in addition to being an author and providing everything online, you do also do readings for people.
Yes.
So, do you do that daily?
No, I don't. Actually, I've never pushed or advertised much for my readings, mostly again because I don't want to get burned out. So I
Yeah, I would
do,
wonder.
yeah. I have a corporate job, and that pays my bills, and I like it. It's not, I really love the people I work with, and my job is good. It's not what I imagined I would be doing with my life, but it's good. But yeah, no, I don't want reading to ever become a chore. And I don't want to feel obligated. So I sort of wait for folks to want them, and then I do read at like markets and events, out in public, and then I teach. I haven't taught at all this year for some reason, but I typically do online tarot and divination workshops too. But yeah, I do read what capitalists would call professionally, but I don't make that like my primary income.
No, that's fair. That makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Do you do daily readings for yourself, or is
No,
that still too much?
it's not too much. I just never found it very helpful. So
Mm.
I didn't. And when I was starting out, like reading for myself was really difficult. I've gotten much better at it. But yeah, no, I do. I read for myself when I need to. But I'll also increasingly go to friends in the world who I know and trust. Like I don't typically go to readers I don't know. But I also find it useful to like get that outside perspective too. So I probably get readings now more often than I give them to myself because I don't know, it's like we can massage ourselves, but getting a massage is much more fun. You know what I mean?
No, I feel that way too because I do readings for some of my patrons, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so accurate." And, I love getting them and makes so much sense to me. And I'm like, I'm glad it works for you because I can't do it for myself.
Yeah,
Like, it just doesn't like I have such like a block because you want certain outcomes for
yeah,
yourself, and you like see certain things that aren't there, and you're like kind of pushing against what the tarot is actually trying to tell you.
right,
Because you have just like so many of your own biases that I don't have when I read for somebody else. I'm like, well, I have no
exactly.
idea what your problems are. I don't know all the like details, so I can just tell you what they said. The cards are telling me.
Yeah, yeah. We used to say it was an objectivity issue, but now I think it's just a foreignness issue. Like the fact that I know nothing about what's going on in a client's life makes it easier for me to just say what I see. And when I'm reading for myself, I do, and I'm such a pessimist, and it's probably a trauma response too. But I'm always going to see death and decay in my own readings.
Yeah. I know. I'm always like looking for like, what's the worst possible meaning for this card
Right.
in my own
One
life?
one thing I have been doing in the last couple of years, though, is asking, how much should I be panicked right now when I'm looking at the world? And the readings have been very like not like no, don't go over the edge yet. Don't go like, and the readings have been very comforting. So that's something I have been doing, and it's been helping me.
Oh, that's good. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I should, I should do that too because I feel
yeah,
like, like every time which I have not been doing on purpose, but like every time I sign on social media, I'm like,
Uh,
the world
yeah,
is chaos. Like
it's
it's a
bad.
dumpster fire and it's going to end in the next
Yeah.
like 20 years. When they were like, there was like that whole thing, a couple weeks ago about
Oh, yeah. The
some
rapture.
denomination thinking like it was like the last day of the world and like,
Yeah.
the reckoning or whatever. And I was like, they could be right this time. I don't know. We might be there.
Oh, if only.
I know. And I'm like, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should just be asking my cards, like, is it time to panic yet?
Yeah, it's been really helpful, I have to say.
That's a good way to do a reading. Is there anything else that you do regularly, like cleansing or anything, like for your own energy, especially working with other people?
I've been so not in the past, but I've been increasingly doing more kind of spiritual work, and I didn't know when I got it. So I got my Reiki 2 certification this year, which some people are very like they hear Reiki and they're like, oh my god, you do Reiki? Let's talk about nothing but Reiki. And then other people hear it and they're like, oh no, Reiki, you, because it's a I had no idea how kind of divisive it was, but that has been helping me get through life too, and with readings, because it what I think I've discovered about it is it takes us from fight or flight to rest and digest, and that keeps me much more even tempered. And I have ADHD and I have pretty severe emotional dysregulation sometimes. It's helps me deal with that part too, right? Like I can't just see something upsetting and not despair, you know? Um and so Reiki has really helped me, and I think any, sound healing I've been exploring a lot too. So like in my 40s now. I'm kind of embracing all the stuff that I shoved away, like spirituality and healing and all of those things that I don't think I knew I needed or maybe didn't need at that point in my life, but I definitely need now. And I gotta say, like, I'm actually happy to talk with people about Reiki who are like, I've had bad experiences with this world, because it has changed my life for the better. But I also have seen so much spiritual bypassing in that space that I understand why people have the reactions they do. And so one of the things I then take on, in my like white savior mode, is to say, well, I'm going to rescue it. I'm going to rescue Reiki, and that's not my job. But I do like talking about it, because there is something beyond the spiritual bypassing that people have experienced that is good and is I think essential for us to regulate our nervous system so that we can endure, so that we can continue. It's not about escapism. It's not about bypassing. It's about we all have to go through this together. But if we have things that keep our nervous systems eat more even, then we can survive together better. And that's kind of what I've discovered in the last year or so. Really, it's been a very fast transformation, because I was very kind of anti-spiritual for a long time, because I feel like I had been so burned by it in the past.
No, I'm completely with you there. I think a lot of us had that experience growing up of it's too dogmatic and didn't make sense. And then we
Yeah.
went like completely the other way.
Yeah, I saw a meme this morning that was, it's so weird to grow up Catholic or Christian and be told, be nice to others, care about others, take care of each other. And then, grow up and be told, no, that's socialism, you moron. And
It's
it's,
an absolutely wild place,
it's crazy.
absolutely wild place to be.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, I had so many issues with that as well, but definitely like going to like the complete opposite end and then just like seeing like witchcraft is like a practice and I
Yeah.
don't need any like spirituality or any like
Yeah.
deities or like nothing else exists. It's just, the things I do with
Yeah.
my tarot cards and my crystals and yeah, then like coming to like find some sort of middle ground. It's definitely a journey.
It really is. And I think it should be. I think that's, when we just sort of willingly accept stuff because it's cool, it's not real. But when we have to go through it and we have to find it that way, we fall in love with it in a different way, and I think it means something in a different way when we've been through the fire with it a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just fascinating, like how we all sort of grow up and then like in this witchcraft community grow up in like kind of like similar ways and then find ourselves like
Yeah,
much later in life, but we are
yeah.
sort of figuring things out. It feels good. It feels good
It
to
does.
like have the community like this.
100%.
I'm
I
like, well,
totally agree.
I'm not totally alone, and I'm not totally crazy.
Right, and that's so helpful too. There are parts of social media that have been keeping me going, and one of them is seeing how many people in my circle, not I don't mean like witchy circle, just in my social media circle, have a like mind, and I don't feel quite so alone. Sometimes, sometimes it's just totally. We're just getting screwed by the algorithms left, right, and center, and we're supposed to be miserable so that we spend more money. But through that, even things like this conversation, right? Like these things can happen now because of that too. So it's a
I
mixed
mean,
bag.
joke's on them because I'm just spending more money on witchcraft books and tarot
Exactly.
decks.
Same tarot decks, witchcraft books, sound healing. I mean, I spent my bonus on crystal singing bowls this year. It was like it
Those
was
can be very expensive, right?
they are, and they
Yeah.
are gorge. The sound,
Oh,
oh,
I
love it.
bet. I've seen them. I don't have any myself, but I have
Oh,
seen them, and I know, like, as you go up in size, that they're just oh,
yeah,
very crazy.
and I'm so
They're
afraid to break
beautiful.
them.
Oh yeah, of course. You're like, I want to touch them and use them, but also
Right.
nobody stepped too hard next to them.
Exactly, and I'm such a klutz. Like I am, which I also have found out is another neurodivergent thing. But so I drop everything.
Oh
It drives me
no.
nuts.
Oh no, don't do that. You
No,
need, like,
no, that's why I
kid
only use them
gloves
on the
with those.
floor.
Good idea. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any last advice for beginners that we haven't already touched on? I know we talked about a lot of different
Yeah.
topics, but any beginners who are going to be picking up this book or checking out your work for the first time?
Yes. So if you're a beginner and you want to read this book, I would actually jump to the ego chapter first. Because it's going to let you off the hook. You don't have to be good at everything the second you pick up a deck of tarot cards. And probably if someone is saying that they've done that and they're lying. Enjoy being a student, play, experiment. Like, don't let the inner editor ruin your journey. I have spent so many experiences in my life that it should have been like studenty and fun and playful, trying to prove myself and treating them like auditions. Don't do that. Like, enjoy being a student, enjoy the learning process. And for those who aren't beginners, go back to being a student as often as we can, because we should always be getting back in that sandbox. Just play, experiment, be curious. I think that's my advice for everybody when it comes to this stuff.
Well, that is fantastic advice. I love I love advice like that
Thank
because
you.
I get bogged down in the cerebral as well, and I like to
Yeah,
like practice because I'm like I'm just learning, and of course me with my nose in the books all the time,
same.
and I'm like I need to get out there and I need to have fun with it and just not take myself so seriously, which also guilty.
It's so hard not to, because we are conditioned to, hustle and produce, and do all that stuff. But perfectionism is is colonial. I read recently, and I think that makes sense, right? It's designed to keep us from doing what we're naturally powerful
That makes a lot of sense to me because
at.
that's definitely, something that I struggle with as well.
Yeah,
And I think that just like our culture just has you wrapped up in this idea that your worth is based on your work output. Like that's
right.
crazy.
It
It's
is.
not your value is not there with like how much you can get done in a day. That's not
And it
what makes
no,
you a
and it makes
person.
even I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It makes even things you enjoy doing less good. Like the book launch this week, I suddenly had in my head like, oh gee, there should be a parade or something, right? But there wasn't, and there never was going to be. But like somehow social media had me convinced that like in order for this book to be valuable, I should be, getting interviewed at, I don't know, the town hall in New York, right? Like, but it doesn't work that way, But like the ego stuff makes you so it took the joy away, and I had to like come back and say, no, 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 no. This is big. This is important. This is, in my own little niche world, this is its thing, and the perfectionism and the ego kind of cripple, not I hate that word, but it hamstrings us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter, you're not trying to be this worldwide renowned like
Right.
author, like having sold like a million copies of the book. I mean, you want to, of course, but
Right.
like the real thing is like finding your right audience and finding the person who needs that resource at that moment.
That's exactly it. And that's who I wrote it for, is the person who needs it. I'm very niche. I'm very niche. I have a lot of attitude. I have a lot, you know what I mean? So I get that I'm not for everybody, but I wrote it for the person who was like, where has this been? I've been waiting for this.
And I think that's perfect. And I know a lot of listeners are going to resonate with that as well. So thank you so much for being here today and having such a fun chat. I laughed so many times during this.
Yay! Yeah, no, it was so much fun. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I really appreciated just sharing all of your expertise. It was fantastic. And I think the book is a wonderful resource just for like learning and history, all of my favorite things. And then
Yay!
how that like, comes around to today. So thanks for writing it.
My pleasure.
Listeners, as always, I am going to have everything linked below and over in the show notes at witchwednesdays.com so you can find everything that we were talking about today so you can, get your hands on the book, of course, the Modern Fortune Teller's Field Guide, but also so you can check out, the website, the Instagram, the YouTube, like everything that we talked about that I was like, there's so much information. You've done so much work. All of that will be linked below. And that's everything that I have for you all this week. I will see you next week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. And you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.